Hi, I'm Patrick Sullivan. This is Recurring Insight, and for this episode, I'm going to be talking about Sensei's Divining Top. Sensei's Divining Top is a cool case study for me because it's generally accepted to be a not great design, but when I hear people talk about it, often they hone in on one feature of it, when I think the real issue is an interlocking set of perverse incentives and mechanics that adds up to greater than the sum of the parts, but in a bad way.
Sensei's Divining Top can best be described with the most dangerous two words in card game design: seemingly innocuous. In fact, I think there's a good chance it would have flown under the radar for a very long time. It wasn't like it got a lot of heat during preview season. If it did not appear in a block format and a standard format built around two very powerful ways to shuffle your deck and two cards that provided an incentive to manage flooding out in Kodama's Reach and Sakura Tripelter. Those two cards gave control decks enough mana and enough shuffling and enough desire to make sure that they were just finding their most powerful cards, their most desirable bullets alongside Gifts Ungiven, that Sensei's Divining Top got a spotlight on it very early on. But I think that if you went back in time and printed it in a set that didn't have that sort of stuff going on, it would not have popped for a very long time. There are some very, very serious problems with the incentives here. It might be more illustrative of that sort of issue than any card really in Magic's history. It is so powerful with shuffling your deck, and it's pretty innocuous if you're not doing that. You're just sort of rearranging the top three. You get an initial look early on, deeper down, but over time you're just sort of looking at the same three cards over and over again. Once you start shuffling your deck, it becomes an entirely different animal, and it's compounding the fact that in Legacy especially, the format is already built around those sorts of interactions. Brainstorm and Ponder alongside fetch lands and some other low opportunity cost ways to shuffle your deck is already what the format is about. And so Sensei's Divining Top, while it was legal, slotted very naturally in. It's not just a power level issue. The card has a notoriously bad play pattern. One, you really just can't finish rounds of tournament Magic inside the allotted 50 minutes or hour when both players have it. But even if it wasn't really an issue of time, I think there is something really insidious about, one, a single player monopolizing the majority of the game actions, and two, doing it in a way that is not public facing. Your opponent is just sitting there rearranging the top cards of their deck over and over again. It's a private zone, and they never let you in on the joke. And then on top of that, it's functionally indestructible. It is very, very hard to destroy an opposing copy of Sensei's Divining Top, and that multiplies all the other issues around monopolizing game actions and one player not being in on the joke. If you wanted to fix this card, and I don't know if it's desirable to do, because I don't think you can solve the issue of the amount of time that it takes up and the incentives with shuffling, but I think if you could activate the put this on top and draw a card only at sorcery speed, it would go a really long way to making the card more palatable for two reasons. One, it's just a rate issue. Once your opponent has some ability to destroy it, it opens up a bunch of interaction points. It's sort of intrinsically less obnoxious when you have the hope of being able to destroy it. But two, I think Sensei's Divining Top, specifically alongside Miracle Designs, but kind of just with reaction in general, it is too stressful for your opponent to have access to it on your turn. And if there was a shields down moment where you didn't have to think about it, or at the minimum, if your opponent was compelled to make some decisions on their own turn that they were locked into, I think it would alleviate how overbearing the card is on top of the games that it appears in. But the card, as it went out the door, is a really good example of how perverse incentives alongside a lack of meaningful interaction points can take a design that doesn't look like much on its surface, but engenders some really, really bad play patterns and is a power level nightmare to boot.
Again, that was Sensei's Divining Top, and this is Recurring Insight. A couple things you can do from here: like and subscribe to the video. Try to be cool about my screaming baby over here in the background. Maybe you can see her, maybe not. And make sure to be tuning in next week when to kind of break up the monotony here, unpack a design that's actually kind of fun and sweet and not horrible.